Hello everyone and welcome to another random video on the internet. So, I've been having quite a hard time writing scripts for my Naruto What If series lately. Not because I don't know what to do with them, as I have things planned out in advance for both those stories. I just figured that I'm a little bit tired of them. Don't get me wrong, I'm definitely continuing them and I am invested in those series, but I've been writing them for a long time now and I need a break from them. So today I wanted to switch things up and take a look at a different topic, do a different kind of what if. And I've had this idea tingling in the back of my mind for a while now. What if Jigen intervened in the 4th Great Ninja War? Right off the bat, this is not a power scaling video. This is not about how well Jigen would stack up against Kaguya or Teen Naruto and Sasuke because I think the answer should be quite obvious at this point. And I am more so interested in exploring Jigen's role in it, what he would do, his motivations, goals, actions, and so on. Unlike my usual what-ifs, I'm not going to tell a coherent story here, and instead I'm going to look at several different ways this could go down. First, I'll go over Jigen's location and motive to join, then I'll go over what his goal would be and which side, if any, he would support, and then I'll speculate when he could enter the war, give several scenarios, and so on. Without any further ado, let's get right into it. First of all, where was Jigen during the war in the original? Well, we don't have an answer to that question, but I am inclined to assume that he was somewhere on Earth as he is stuck in a human's body, so I doubt that he can just fly through space. I suppose he could teleport out, but where would he go? I really hope Kishimoto or Kodachi eventually clarifies where Jigen was during all of Naruto, but for this what if, I'll say he was on Earth at this point for the sake of the video. I also think he probably wouldn't have formed Kara yet, as Amato would still be relatively young at this point. It's very unclear when or how he met Amato. However, whether Kara is or isn't a factor doesn't really change the story all that much in the grand scheme of things. Second, why would Jigen join the war? This also segues into which side he'd support and what his goal would be. Well, the first part of the question is pretty simple. This war affects his plans greatly. Obito is attempting to form a 10 Tails and grow a God Tree. The Alliance is trying to stop them. But it's the second part of the question that's a lot harder to answer. Which side, if any, would Jigen want to succeed? Well, if the poll I posted yesterday is any indication, most people who watch my channel lean towards him supporting Obito. And I've seen some interesting points brought up in the comments of the post. Mainly the idea that Jigen would either betray Obito and take the God Tree for himself, or he would allow Obito to become a 10 Tails Jinchuriki and then feed him to his own Jubi to get the chakra fruit. This was my first thoughts too, but the more I thought about it, the more questions I had about it. Mainly, if Obito as a Jubi Jinchuriki would be Otsutsuki enough to sacrifice for a God Tree. Because really, it's not like Obito is turning into an Otsutsuki by absorbing the Jubi. Jubito is just Obito merged with a 10 Tails. They can easily be separated as seen when both Madara and Obito himself get the Jubi extracted from them. Using Jubito as a sacrifice would kind of be like feeding a human and a 10 Tails to another 10 Tails. I don't know how it would work. Another problem is that Ishiki doesn't have a proper vessel right now. And what good is a chakra fruit to Ishiki without a proper body to be able to eat it? Seriously, Jigen can barely handle Ishiki's power as it is. A chakra fruit wouldn't make things any better for Ishiki. What it comes down to, in my opinion, is that Jigen can grow a God Tree whenever he wants, as he already has a 10 Tails of his own and can use Jigen's body as a sacrifice. And he'll never be able to get a proper vessel if he allows Obito to win. So I think that Ishiki would actually be against cultivating a chakra fruit before he's able to get his hands on a proper vessel and decide to go against Obito. Though there is another very interesting possibility that I'll touch upon later. Now let's get into a few scenarios and see how things could go down in each one. Scenario 1, Jigen joins the war from the very start. For this one, Ishiki would have to have gotten word of Obito's plans before the war starts, which probably wouldn't be too hard considering that the Uchiha openly announced them to the leaders of the 5 great nations. So what would happen if Jigen joined the war from day 1? He wouldn't know where Obito and Kabuto's base of operations is, so he couldn't go confront them directly. And I also don't think that he'd show himself to the Alliance, at least not at first. He'd want to observe everything from the side and scout the situation out. Jigen would soon figure out most things there are to know about the Edo Tensei being used by Kabuto. He wouldn't be worried about it, as he can easily seal away any dead shinobi he needs to. The first move Jigen makes would likely come after Naruto and Bee break out of the Turtle Island. Since those two are Obito's, or at this point Madara's to Jigen's knowledge, main targets, Obito would no doubt come to blows with them at some point. So Jigen would most likely locate the Jinchuriki duo and start following them while staying hidden. That part shouldn't be an issue, as Otsutsuki can mask their presence, and a much older Naruto with much more potent sensory capabilities couldn't sense Jigen during their battle. The first point in the war where I see Jigen actually deciding to step in would be when Naruto and Bee are confronted by Nagato and Itachi. When Jigen sees how badly Nagato is handling the Jinchuriki, he might decide to play it safe and step in himself right there and then before Itachi can. For this scenario, let's say he decides to do that. Jigen would suddenly appear behind Nagato and dismantle him before sealing him away with the greatest of ease. Nagato and Bee would be left speechless as this random guy just appeared out of nowhere and took Nagato out like it was no big deal. Itachi would soon land next to the group as well. Naruto and Bee would undoubtedly start asking questions, and being the polite gentleman he is, Jigen would introduce himself and tell the group that his goal is to take down Madara. Obviously the group would be suspicious, especially Itachi, but Jigen did save them. If he was on Madara's side, he would not have done that. Jigen would end up joining Naruto and Bee, not because he wants to help them, and certainly not because he needs their help. Ishiki would just want to use them as bait to lure out Obito. That's all. And Itachi would go confront Kabuto like in the original. Speaking of Kabuto, he would undoubtedly warn Obito about this new threat that was able to easily dismantle Nagato. Obito would be wary, but he wouldn't call his plans off just from this. He'd still be confident in his ability to win. The next event would happen when Obito and his 6 Jinchuriki confront Naruto's group. And this could end up being more interesting than you might think. Obito will at first butt heads with Naruto like usual. Then he'll ask who in the world Jigen is, and Jigen will respond by introducing himself and then politely asking Obito to stop what he's doing. We see numerous times that Jigen is very non-confrontational and only resorts to fighting when he's got to do so. He's also very tolerant of humans, all things considered, as he actually works with them. Ishiki's mind is a lot more evolved than most Otsutsuki in this department, as he's willing to actually work with lesser species. So when Obito starts preaching about how this world isn't worth fighting for, Jigen might just straight up explain to him how the infinite Tsukuyomi actually works, and that if it's launched successfully, it would mean the end of the human race. Obito wouldn't believe it at first and ask Jigen how he could possibly know that, and Jigen might actually take the time to explain most things to him, obviously leaving out the fact that he himself wants to get a proper vessel and then destroy the planet. It wouldn't be out of character for him, to be honest. Now, I'm not saying that Jigen is a better manipulator or smarter than Obito. No, he just has more information in this case, and he can use that information to get to Obito. And so the war may actually just straight up end there. I don't think Obito would give in easily, but with enough proof, Jigen might be able to just straight up talk no jutsu him out of the war. And if not, he can always easily kill Obito and steal his Biju for himself to maybe empower his Ten Tails or something like that. The same applies to Madara once he arrives. Jigen will tell him the truth, and if Madara refuses to give in, he'll just seal him away. And yeah, one way or another, Jigen will have ended the war with minimal effort. As for what would happen after that, I see Jigen returning to experimenting with kids in an effort to find a vessel. He would likely also capture Naruto and B to see if they might be compatible with his karma. And with Naruto being the reincarnation of Asura, he might actually fit the bill. Also, Kara members seem to think that Naruto and Sasuke could be compatible with Momoshiki's karma in Boruto. Granted, it's a different, much older Naruto and Sasuke with God Chakra, and the Kara members might not have enough intel on them, but still, it is some form of proof. So KCM 1 era Naruto being compatible might not be too likely, but I do believe that it is possible. So scenario 1 ends with either Ishiki making Naruto into a vessel, reincarnating into him and destroying the planet, or it ends with him waiting until he finds Kawaki like usual. Zetsu would eventually try to make a move, but he'd easily be killed. Toneri might also attack, which would result in Jigen beating him down. I don't know if he'd try to put a karma on Toneri. The idea of an Otsutsuki putting a karma on another Otsutsuki seems kinda weird. Jigen might seal Toneri and unleash him later to feed him to the Ten Tails as a sacrifice after reincarnating into Kawaki though. He might also confront and beat up Momoshiki and Kinshiki when they eventually showed up. Or he might show up before them and be like, "No, this is my planet to drain, get out."
Now get off my planet!
So yeah, no matter what, Jigen is coming out on top in this scenario. The second scenario is that he doesn't step in to fight Nagato and only joins the war when Obito comes out to confront Naruto and B. This one isn't much different from the first one, so let's just move on. The third scenario is that Jigen decides to enter the war after Obito revives the Ten Tails. In this case, not much changes either. The only notable thing is that Jigen would seal away the Ten Tails for his own use later down the line. The fourth scenario is the most interesting one. This is the thing that I said I'd get back to earlier in the video. This scenario is that Jigen enters the war after Jubito's appearance. And technically it could also happen on all the previous scenarios if Jigen hears out Obito's plans and allows him to become a Jubi Jinchuriki. In this case, he might actually be able to make Obito into a vessel. I know I said earlier that Jubito probably couldn't be used as a sacrifice for the Ten Tails because he's most likely not Otsutsuki enough, but this is different. To be fed to the Ten Tails, a person has to be mostly Otsutsuki genetically. However, a person can be compatible with karma even without having Otsutsuki traits. And I imagine that having some Otsutsuki traits could higher the chances of a person being compatible with karma, like Boruto having a Jogan for example. Obito would also have greatly increased vitality thanks to Hashirama cells and the Jubi, so I imagine he'd have an easier time surviving the procedure. I think it's a bit of a stretch, but Jubito might be compatible with Jigen's karma. So what's most likely going to happen if that's the case is Jigen will take Obito down and bestow a karma on him. And I think this would probably work, I don't see why not. So Ishiki is going to use Jubito as his vessel. And oh boy, if he was as powerful as he was in canon with the body of a normal human who didn't even have chakra before he got possessed, just imagine how strong Ishiki would be after reincarnating into the body of one of the strongest Uchiha, who's also a Ten Tails Jinchuriki. Ishiki will be absolutely unstoppable when he reincarnates. But Jigen would have to wait for the karma to develop. And once the Shinobi Alliance realizes how threatening Jigen is, they will of course try to stop him by fighting him, but it wouldn't go well.
Get him up, let him get up, let him get up, let him get up. Fight back, nigga! Fight back, nigga! Fight back! Fight back!
Scenario 4 ends with Ishiki reincarnating into Jubito's body and becoming the most broken Naruto character ever. And if he can't do that, then he might be able to make Naruto or Sasuke into a vessel, and if he can't do that, then he'll just have to wait until Kawaki is born. Scenario 5 is that Jigen joins when Madara becomes a Jubi Jinchuriki, and this is going to be the same as the last scenario, only this time Ishiki uses Jubidara as a vessel, so he's even more broken. And again, if this doesn't work, he'll use Kawaki as a vessel eventually. And lastly, scenario 6. Jigen intervenes when Kaguya is revived. Kaguya versus Jigen is going to happen. I'm not even going to bother talking about this. I'm not trying to start another war. I'll just split the timeline into two from this point. If you think Kaguya wins, then she'll go on to lose to Team 7 and the timeline will resume as normal, only there will be no Kawaki arc or the current manga arc. And if you think Jigen wins by either killing her, which is entirely possible as Kaguya is literally confirmed to have died twice in the Boruto era, or sealing her away, then he'll go to make either Naruto or Sasuke his vessel. And if he can't do that, again he'll just kill them and then wait for Kawaki. He'll also deal with Toneri, Momoshiki, Kinshiki, and Urashiki when he has to. But that's all just my thoughts on the topic. I think there's an interesting discussion to be had here. What do you think would have happened if Jigen had decided to join the 4th Great Ninja War? Let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comments below. With all that being said, thank you for staying all the way to the end. Hope you have a good day and goodbye.